Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a huge question, maybe one of the biggest challenges for our entire green energy future.
Okay, so we all love renewables like solar and wind power, right? They're fantastic. But they've got this one big glaring problem: intermittency. So where does all that solar power go at night? We've got to find a way to bottle up that energy for when the sun isn't shining or the wind just isn't blowing.
You see, our green future totally depends on finding the perfect power bank. The thing is, every single option has a dangerous secret. And that is the story of this search. It's a high-stakes competition between, giant physical forces on one side and cutting-edge chemistry on the other, all vying to become the battery for our planet.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the physical giants. We're talking about the contenders that use the fundamental forces of nature. Water, air, and heat.
Okay, first up is pumped hydro storage. Now this is the old guard, the most established grid-scale battery we have. Think of it like a giant water battery. You've got two reservoirs, one up high and one down low. To store energy, you pump water uphill. To get that energy back, you just let it flow back down through a turbine. Simple, right? But here's the deal, the essential trade-off with pumped hydro. On one hand, you get massive, cheap, and totally proven storage. It works. On the other hand, it's what you might call a geographic prisoner. You literally can't build these things just anywhere. You need the perfect terrain, the right kind of mountains, and of course, a ton of water.
All right, contender number 2 is compressed air energy storage. This is pretty cool. You take massive amounts of air, compress it, and shove it into these huge, naturally occurring salt caverns deep underground. Then, when you need power, you just release that pressurized air, let it expand through a turbine, and boom, you've got electricity.
And one of its biggest advantages? Just look at this chart. We're talking about incredible longevity. These things are built to last for 20, even 30 years or more. They just completely blow away chemical batteries in terms of lifespan, which makes them a really solid long-term investment.
Okay, our final physical giant is molten salt thermal storage. This is wild. It basically stores the sun's energy as pure, intense heat. We're talking over 500 degrees Celsius, all held in these massive, super-insulated tanks of molten salt. And that stored heat can then be used to create steam and power a turbine anytime, day or night.
Now this number here, 90% or more, that's its heat storage efficiency. And it's incredibly good at that part, just holding on to the heat with almost no loss. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. The process of converting that heat back into electricity, yeah, that's a whole lot less efficient.
All right, that brings us to Section 2, the chemical revolution. We're switching gears now, looking at how modern chemistry is trying to solve this problem in a much more compact and, frankly, different way.
So, our next contender is something you're probably very familiar with: lithium-ion batteries. Yep, this is the exact same tech that's in your phone and in electric cars, just scaled up to the size of entire buildings. And they bring a kind of speed and flexibility to the table that those physical giants just can't touch.
So what are the big advantages? Well, it's all about speed and adaptability. You can build these plants almost anywhere, which is a huge plus. They respond to what the grid needs in milliseconds. And the best part? The more we build, the cheaper they get, thanks to economies of scale.
Okay, now for something a little more exotic. Let's talk about vanadium flow batteries. This is a totally different approach. You have these two giant tanks filled with a liquid vanadium electrolyte, and you store and release energy just by pumping these liquids past a special membrane. The genius part? If you want more energy, you just build bigger tanks.
And this number, over 20,000? This is its superpower. We're talking about an almost unbelievable lifespan. See, unlike other batteries that wear out a little bit with every single charge, a vanadium flow battery can be charged and discharged, get this, tens of thousands of times without really losing much capacity at all. It's incredible.
Okay, so that brings us to Section 3, the critical hidden dangers. We have our contenders, right? Each one has some pretty clear strengths, but every single option on our quest has a hidden, critical weakness, a secret danger that we absolutely have to confront.
Let's go back to pumped hydro. Now imagine a severe, multi-year drought. Suddenly, our biggest, most reliable battery could just run out of water. It would fail at the exact moment the country needs it most. That's not just an inconvenience. That's a genuine national security risk.
And what about compressed air? Well, those giant salt caverns that make it all possible, they're also its Achilles heel. Think about it. They're vulnerable to very specific kinds of seismic events, or even scarier, a military attack from something like a bunker buster. An attack like that could cause a catastrophic and totally irreversible collapse.
Now for molten salt. A system failure or a targeted attack on one of those massive storage tanks, well, it could release literal rivers of dangerously hot 500-degree molten salt. The consequences both for the environment and for human safety would be absolutely devastating.
This next one, this is a really chilling reality about lithium-ion. When one of these massive batteries is attacked, it doesn't just break. No, the immense energy it's holding is released uncontrollably. It actually contributes its own power to the explosion, magnifying the damage far, far beyond the initial impact. It essentially helps its attacker. And finally, we have flow batteries. A breach in a really big one is, frankly, a terrifying thought. You could have hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of this potentially toxic electrolyte just leaking out, poisoning an entire region's river system, its whole water supply. A watershed-level environmental disaster. So, after facing all of these hidden dangers, where does our quest actually leave us? This brings us to Section 4, Choosing Our Energy Future.
Okay, let's look at the final score part here. When you lay it all out like this, it becomes painfully clear that the whole quest for a single, perfect battery, it's a fantasy. It doesn't exist. Every single choice is a massive, high-stakes trade-off between a really powerful advantage and a truly terrifying society-level risk.
So with no perfect solution, what's the real question? It isn't which one of these is going to win. The real question is, which of these risks are we, as a society, willing to accept for a green future? The final takeaway is that our energy future isn't going to be built on one magic bullet. It's going to be built on a carefully balanced and wisely managed portfolio of all these imperfect and sometimes dangerous solutions.